Hello, Reds fans. Welcome to the YNWA Transfer News Channel. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for your daily latest news.
I played for Liverpool. Reds do not need to sign Alexander Isak this summer. Liverpool is now just 2 days away from kicking off its season in the Community Shield. Last time the Reds were at Wembley, Alexander Isak found the net for Newcastle. But the build-up to this trip has been dominated by conversation over whether the striker might soon be turning out for Arne Slot's side. It was never likely to be a straightforward transfer to pull off, given that Liverpool would need to pay a British record fee to land its man. And things have been further complicated by Newcastle's apparent inability to sign any of its potential replacement targets. But with Hugo Ekitike already through the door, and youngsters like Rio Ngumaha shining in preseason, some have been left to wonder whether Liverpool's money might be better spent elsewhere. One former Red counts himself among those urging Slot to take a different approach. David James has cautioned against too many riches in the Liverpool attack. He has suggested that his former club can win the Premier League without Isak. Liverpool don't need Alexander Isak to win the Premier League, James said at the launch of Final One standing by William Hill. It's possible for a team to be blessed with too many riches, and it can end with disappointing results. I know it's important not to attach too much importance to preseason fixtures, but Liverpool look like a well-balanced side full of confident players. If they were to sign Isak, one immediate benefit would be that it would significantly weaken Newcastle. But that's not the difference between winning the Premier League or not. It wouldn't make them any stronger favourites than they already are. Liverpool certainly won't be factoring in the element of weakening Newcastle. Despite losing in the Carabao Cup, the Reds won't consider the Magpies to be too much of a threat to their overall ambitions just yet. What's more interesting is whether James could be right about upsetting the apple cart. Liverpool's attack has been clicking in preseason, so adding a new ingredient to the formula inevitably comes with some kind of risk. In particular, Ekitike would be forgiven for having concerns if Isak were to come through the door. So far, he has been tasked with leading the line, but his role would become a little less defined if the Swede were to arrive. He might find himself shifted out to the left, but that would have implications for Cody Gakpo. He made his case to step up in the absence of Luis Diaz with a brace against Athletic Club in the last preseason outing. Meanwhile, some would raise worries about what the arrival of Isak would do to the pathway for the likes of Ngumaha. Given what we have seen from him, blocking his route to minutes could ultimately prove counterproductive. All in all, however, Liverpool does not really seem as though it is at the point where it has too many riches. For one thing, one of the main sources of goals in preseason is most of the way out of the door. Darwin Núñez has been destined for the chop for weeks, but he has played an outsized role in preseason, with no other recognized strikers available for much of that time. He has chipped in with numerous goals, but now looks on the brink of a switch to Saudi Arabia. In that context, bringing in both Ekitike and Isak looks perfectly reasonable. It would mean leaving out some extremely talented players every week, but that's the nature of the biggest clubs. It is up to Slot to manage the respective personalities at play in the dressing room. He has every reason to back himself, having maintained morale in the camp last season despite barely using elite players like Harvey Elliott. Depth wins trophies at the highest level. Liverpool does not just want to retain its Premier League crown, it wants to challenge for everything. Isak would help to achieve that, and that in itself should be reason enough to go full steam ahead with the transfer, regardless of James' concerns. Liverpool transfer news. Arne Slot's Alexander Isak reply and things aren't signed hint. Liverpool boss Arne Slot has hinted Darwin Núñez's transfer to Saudi side Al Hilal is nearly finalized in a telling press conference. However, he remained tight-lipped on whether Alexander Isak would be stepping into the Uruguayan's shoes at Anfield. Slot's Premier League champions have already welcomed Hugo Ekitike, 23, to their attacking lineup, but Isak remains a target. An initial offer of up to £120 million was turned down by Newcastle, and it's yet to be seen if the Reds will come back with a new proposal this summer. Questioned about the 25-year-old Swedish goal machine, the Dutch manager told reporters ahead of Liverpool's Community Shield clash against Crystal Palace on Sunday. As you know, we never talk about players that aren't yours. I can talk about Hugo, who signed recently. We are very happy with the squad we are having. Okay, players left, but we brought players in as well, and youngsters are doing good. Darwin might leave, but things aren't signed yet. We need to wait a few days before things are done. The departure of Nunez, 26, could bolster Liverpool's transfer kitty by a further £46 million, rising to more than £50 million, as they pursue the £120m rated Isak. He missed Newcastle's tour of Asia, instead training with his old club Real Sociedad as he worked towards regaining full fitness. The Swedish striker is now back training at Newcastle, but manager Eddie Howe isn't expected to select him for upcoming friendly matches. Howe said earlier this week, "You have to earn the right to train with us. We are Newcastle United. The player has a responsibility here to be part of a team and part of a squad. You have to act in the right way." So that is also at play here. We will make sure that any player does that to earn the right to train with the group. No player can expect to act poorly and train with the group as normal. Slot didn't directly address Isak, but he did hint at another attacking option for later in the season. With Mohamed Salah set to be absent during the Africa Cup of Nations, Slot suggested new right-back Jeremy Frimpong could step up in his absence. We definitely thought about AFCON. It's partly why we brought in Frimpong, because he can play as a right winger. A maximum of 6 games without MO, but that's a lot in the Premier League. Jeremy can play there, but he isn't the only option. Liverpool's immediate attention is on the Community Shield. The Reds face FA Cup winners Palace at Wembley on Sunday, offering fans another glimpse of fresh faces like Frimpong, Ekitike, and Florian Wirtz. Slot said, reflecting on pre-season, "Bilbao, Milan, and Yokohama already gave us good competition. Palace hit the ground running again. It is still the same team. A good challenge for us to start the season." David Ornstein, Newcastle I30G per a star to replace Liverpool transfer target Alexander Isak. Newcastle United are reportedly considering a transfer move for Porto striker Samu Agahoa amid doubts over Alexander Isak's future. The talented 21-year-old forward scored 27 goals in all competitions last season, whilst also providing 3 assists for his teammates. According to The Athletic's David Ornstein, Newcastle have not yet made contact over a possible deal for Agahoa, but he's being considered by the Magpies. The report notes that Newcastle have rejected a big bid from Liverpool for star striker Isak, while they're also set to be beaten to Benjamin Sesko by Manchester United. The links with Agahoa make sense, so it will be interesting to see if Newcastle can get it done. Samu Agahoa previously came close to joining Chelsea. Agahoa was also a target for Chelsea last summer before he ended up joining Porto, with the Athletic's report noting that a move to Stamford Bridge collapsed at a late stage. Caught offside were also previously informed that the Spaniard had interest from other Premier League clubs such as Arsenal, Manchester United, Aston Villa and West Ham earlier in this window. Arsenal ended up signing Victor Gyökeres and United are bringing in Sesko, so it now seems Newcastle are Agahoa's main suitors. It will be interesting to see, however, if this is a deal Chelsea end up living to regret missing out on, though they clearly ended their interest by signing different strikers instead this summer, bringing in Liam Delap and João Pedro. Agahoa to Newcastle to replace Liverpool-bound Isak? This interest in Agahoa comes as Liverpool continue to be strongly linked with a fresh bid for Isak. Fabrizio Romano recently posted on his YouTube channel that the Reds were serious about signing the Sweden international. Isak surely won't be easy or cheap to sign, but Romano suggested that Liverpool felt they had the money and were ready to move again in case Newcastle show any sign of backing down on their previous stance that the player is not for sale at any price. Liverpool are badly in need of signing a new centre-back as the summer transfer window enters its final 3 weeks. It has been clear that the Reds would require another defender ever since they sold Jarell Quansah at the beginning of July. However, despite Liverpool pushing to sign an attacker, there has been little evidence of work being done on defensive targets. A few names have been put forward as targets, though, and Parma teenager Giovanni Leone has emerged as a serious contender. On Thursday, Italian journalist Fabrizio Romano claimed that Liverpool could easily beat their Serie A competitors to Lione, with the Reds seen as stronger candidates than either Inter Milan or Juventus. But Liverpool-based reporter Paul Joyce has now weighed in to paint a slightly different picture. Liverpool feel Inter Milan are favourites for Giovanni Leone. Leone looks an excellent prospect. Despite being only 18, he has already made an impact in Serie A for Parma. Christian Chivu was the manager who signed him for the Gialloblu, and with the Romanian having since joined Inter, Joyce says Liverpool have a feeling they may be trailing in the race for Leone. There's certainly going to be a push to bring a defender in, the journalist told the Game podcast. They have been looking at a young, Italian centre-back, Giovanni Leone, who plays for Parma. He's only 18 and Liverpool over recent seasons have tried to make a point of recruiting an up-and-coming centre-back with so far very little success. If you go back 3 summers they tried for Levi Colwill at Chelsea, and that proved a no-go. 2-1 years ago they were in for Lenny Yoro but couldn't guarantee playing time and he went to Manchester United. Dean Huijsen at Bournemouth was a big target this summer but obviously they got trumped by Real Madrid. It feels like a similar situation could be unfolding with Leone. Joyce continued, in that he's 18, he was managed by Christian Chivu at Parma last season. Chivu has just taken over at Inter Milan this summer and I think there's a feeling now that because the 18-year-old wants to play, at that age staying in Italy carries an appeal as well, that Inter are favourites for that deal at the moment. Paul Joyce picks out Leone alternative. Of course, Leone will be far from the only defender Liverpool are monitoring, especially if they feel Inter are favourites to secure the youngster. Joyce does go on to point out another centre-back target for the Reds, reiterating the state of play regarding Mark Guéhi. The other one to probably watch is Mark Guéhi at Crystal Palace. There's a definite interest in him, said the journalist. A lot will depend on Palace's asking price, even if they're willing to sell towards the end of the window. He's probably a £50 million player for Palace even with a year to go on his deal, but Liverpool wouldn't value him at that price. It would need to be considerably lower for them to move now. Thanks for watching. Like and comment. Subscribe.